our pod, and by that I mean on Wednesdays we read. I'm Hannah,
I'm Laura.
and we are usually two best friends who do a deep dive into a new book series, one book at a time. But today
We're
we are
three
three
best
best
friends.
friends because we are welcoming to the pod the wonderful librarian Lora Del Rio. Welcome to the pod.
Hi.
Thanks for being here.
We invited Laura on to discuss libraries because if you've listened to any episode of our podcast, you know that Laura and I are the biggest proponent of libraries.
We love
I
them.
have multiple library cards. It's going to break my heart when
Same.
my Chicago Public Library card expires this year because I'm no longer a Chicago resident. It's just so sad. So we're very excited to talk to you today. For all the listeners, can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your journey as a librarian?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm Lora Del Rio, and I am an academic librarian. So I am the director for research, teaching, and learning in the Humanities Librarian. I'm also a faculty member at Southern Illinois University-Edwardsville, not Carbondale. So SIUE.
E.
It's very
Okay.
important.
Yes, yes. And yeah, I've worked in, I think it's seven different libraries. So
Wow.
yeah, I started out, so I went to the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign for undergrad.
Excellent
And
choice.
yes, I know. Or hail to the orange and blue.
Yes.
Yes. So
Hail alma mater, ever so true, you know.
yes, yes. Victoria, Illinois. So but I'm from Southern Illinois, so I'm from this area and didn't know many people right away. And so I, for whatever reason, knew to go to the library. I mean, I grew up going to the library, and so I went and applied for a job. And the music library had an opening, and I had an amazing boss there. And I still keep in touch with her today.
Oh,
And by the time I graduated, working at the music library, I realized like, oh, I'm gonna be a librarian. So I realized like I would need to get a master's degree, but I wanted to take time off. And so I worked in a couple other libraries in between my undergrad and grad degree. Worked at Southwestern Illinois College, they at their community college down here. And I also worked for the US Court of Appeals library
wow.
in St. Louis. So that's the Eighth Circuit, the
Mhm.
headquarters library. And that was a very interesting experience. And I was like, nope, I don't want to work in a law library. And this is not for me. I wanted to definitely get back to working with students, went back to University of Illinois for my master's degree in library science, worked there while I was doing it, worked at Parkland College in Champaign, Illinois for a little bit, and then Heartland Community College in Normal, Illinois, and then made my way down here to SIUE. And I stick around. So, because I guess they like me here.
That's great. So are there like certain services that you have had like more involvement in over the years, or like maybe you can describe some of the like the different focuses of librarians, because it's I think there's a misconception that people have that librarians just like go to work and read the entire day. So can you tell us maybe a little bit more about like the different concentrations and focuses that you can have within the career?
Yes, absolutely. And that's exactly what people think that we do. And I would love that job. And if you could find the library that's hiring for that job, I would like to do that. So there's definitely, I mean, you could kind of split it into two camps, and maybe some librarians would get mad at me to say this, but there's, public services, and that can kind of like, that's like a big umbrella to look at, like you're really working with the public. So that can be event planning. You might not
Mhm.
think about that with libraries, but like event planning, you need communications. Like we have social media coordinators in libraries. We have, reference, obviously. So helping patrons, do research, or, readers advisory, helping them get the information that they need, the resources that they need. We have people teaching. So we teach information literacy, work really a lot with like the English department in particular for that first year writing program. But you'll also see that in public libraries that they'll do instruction on like tech literacy, that kind of thing. Um, and then you have all the things happening behind the scenes, right? We have our catalogers who are doing this magic work, actually. It's the magic work in the library. So I have wonderful colleagues that work in cataloging that are, making it so that you can find the information that you need. So when you go to a shelf and you find a book that you were looking for, and then you find another book that's like, wow, it's like this was just meant for me to find. It's like it was actually meant for you to find because, my colleague made sure that you would find it right next to there. So we call that the serendipity of the stacks. So, that's figuring out how to describe books or whatever materials on this like really tiny level, this metadata as we call it, so that the human that's trying to find it can retrieve it by however way they search it. And then of course like there's just also like the tech involvement. There's a lot of just technology that's required to be set up and connected for you to be able to get all of that. So that's a very, I don't know if that kind of clarifies
Oh,
or if that's what
definitely.
you're
That's a
familiar with.
That's a perfect rendition because it kind of brings me back to what I remember from the library. So you worked for the US, the Eighth Circuit Court of Appeals. I actually was a former attorney, and I remember through my English classes and through my law classes, like there were always moments where librarians sat us down and taught us how to search for materials. And that was like an entire class of just like, here's how you search for keywords, here's how you pick the right keyword. And that was like a huge thing with like JSTOR or like Westlaw or Lexis, where you have to learn like all of these things. And I think it helps. But in the real world, it transplants to like actually doing Google searches or reading things and knowing the difference between a blog versus a news article and all those types of things. So that's very helpful context.
I also, you mentioned this briefly, just like the people behind the scenes doing the magic and like kind of knowing like where to place books, etc. I've been kind of interested in just trying to figure out like how libraries follow trends and supply like either popular media or know like where to put the things throughout the library in a way that makes them appeal to patrons. How do you go about that type of research?
Well, I mean, in academic libraries, I mean, like we talk to each other. So I mean, some of it is just like just having the scholarship that's out there. So we publish and write about what we do. Like that's our scholarship. And so we have conferences. I mean, there's the Illinois Library Association. So I think that was just held in Peoria last year. So Peoria, Illinois, destination. Uh, and
We should be in those commercials. Forget Jane Lynch.
Wait
Yeah,
till you see the library conferences.
The middle of everything, Illinois.
yes. It actually sounds a lot better than like Springfield. Bless their heart, at least like they've got some rough like conference conference locations, but yeah, I mean, so like we're sharing with each other at these, professional conferences in the literature, trying to see, but also like on top of that, like really understanding like your patrons and like what do they need, what do they want. Um, and that has changed so much, even from, when I was in college, which is now a long time ago. Uh, but we have a maker space here. We have a maker lab in the library. So many would say like that's a trend, and so that's where our folks can come and do 3D prints. And there's like an embroidery machine, a sewing machine, a t-shirt press, a coffee mug press, and a Cricut, and so it's like the space to sort of create and. Um, so I don't know kind of like beyond that, but just like understanding like really understanding like your patrons. So it's gonna just change from library to library. Like on our campus, actually, we have many students and even some employees who are experiencing food insecurity. And so we have a mini pantry in the lower level, in kind of just a more like discreet space. So it's not just open like you're going up and like, taking food and hygiene items for yourself. So it's really a matter of wanting to know what the needs are of the people that use your library and to meet them. So, but
I love that.
also, maybe you get a lot of money. And if anybody wants to give Lovejoy Library a lot of money, we will figure out something great to do with it. So there, there is that. So there are some, some libraries like have really great endowments and have, really, and we have some really nice endowments to support students. And there's, scholarship endowments. But there are some libraries that's like, wow, like they get to build brand new libraries and they're gorgeous and beautiful. So it's kind of, doing what you can with what you have.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and how have libraries evolved throughout the years that you've seen with your experience as a library in all these different spaces?
Man, I think it's still like I feel like I'm being witnessed. There's something shifting even right now. And I'm not even sure that like I understand what it is. And I think some of it is influenced by the pandemic. But I mean the biggest trend is like people are not asking reference questions like they used to.
Mm.
So like across the board, libraries are seeing like that kind of trend down. And then maybe that's just because it's so easily accessible at your fingertips. But there's just more collaboration, I think, happening. Like there's just this want for space to work together. In our library in particular, the students here cannot get enough like dry erase boards, like whiteboards.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're all our library has well four levels if you include the lower level, but that's where like our IT and everything is. But the three upper floors have just these dry erase boards like on wheels, so they can move them around wherever they want. And there's all kinds of like, we have big health sciences programs here. So nursing, dental med, pharmacy. And you'll come in and see all kinds of just anatomy, like they've drawn that.
I was gonna
We're
say,
like,
are these people taking orgo? Because that sounds like an organic chemistry thing to be like, you know what we all need? A
A
whiteboard.
whiteboard.
yes, there's that too. There's a lot of just like they write out these like
Bonds
long
everywhere.
equate. Yes, yes, yes. There's like all kinds of, and it like sometimes it's incredible like how much text they have on these massive whiteboards, and then also just like I think it can be kind of scary to like open up space in a library because then it's like, oh, we want to take that space and use it for something else. But the students here also want to like there's just experimenting and like having furniture they can move around and create new
Yeah.
spaces, put tables together ways that they want, and then we kind of have like a way that we reset things. So I see that. I also see a shift into librarians teaching more. And then the other thing that's like kind of concerning for me, something happening in libraries is just this was like actually a great opportunity to come and talk about like what we do because I think advocacy is something where we need to do some more work. I'm not sure how familiar you are with it, but like Western Illinois University just cut all of their librarians. So at
Oh my
Wow.
this
gosh.
like over the summer, all of the librarians were told, um, your job like you're being laid off effective like May 2025. So they were given, an academic year's notice um, to bye bye. And their
Wow.
interim provost in at Western said that librarians are a luxury
Oh,
at a university. So um, yeah, and then I mean book bans, there are challenges to books. That's been there's increase in that.
Have you seen a lot
So
of like book bans and like pushback against certain media in your work specifically? And like, how is that handled?
no, nope. I have only seen it once in an academic library, and it was at a community college. And it
Hmm.
was interesting, like, so the um the there was a book on photography, and it was like surrealism photography.
Mhm.
It was odd. And so, and there were like, I think nudes and things in there. And I mean, we had a photography, program and courses at the school. So it wasn't, so it was like a published book of photography. And somebody objected to that and asked us to remove it from the collection. And my director said, nope,
Mhm.
not going to
It's
do it.
yeah,
But it doesn't happen it doesn't happen really in academic libraries. It's the
Sure.
public library circle
mm,
where that happens, but no less concerning to me as an academic librarian.
right.
Absolutely. I've been listening to That Librarian by Amanda Jones, and she's a librarian in Louisiana, I think. And she faced a lot of pushback from her community, and they wanted to ban specific books, primarily related to the queer community. And it's a very heartbreaking book, honestly, to listen to her share about how she felt so let down and attacked by her own community. So I was kind of curious as to if that has extended as far as like academic libraries, or maybe even what people can do if there are situations that are like directly involving their local library and books being banned. Is there
Yeah,
anything you would
yeah. I
recommend?
mean, yeah, the things that I mean, just to be informed. I mean, use your library. You need to do that.
Mhm.
Serve on your library's board. I mean, many public libraries are set up with a board of trustees. Sometimes they're like appointed. I believe the way that it's set up here in Edwardsville, our public library board is appointed by the mayor. So, but
Oh,
in some in the neighboring town of Glen Carbon, Illinois, the board of trustees for their library is they're elected positions. So you can run, for your library board. So, do that work. I mean, sometimes like that work is, you're showing up like once a month or something,
mhm. Yeah.
can you put in that time to be a voice, for actually the greater community, because that's what they show. Like the people that want to
Mhm.
ban books, it's a small group of people that are very loud, really, really loud. And
Yeah.
so that's what you hear. Um, the American Library Association is a place that you can go and get information about book challenges. So I recommend doing that. And then also get involved with your community's school board,
Mm.
because school librarians are really the ones that are being like hit hard with this. If you actually have a school librarian, Edwardsville does not right
Mm.
now. I'm putting you on blast, Edwardsville, Illinois. And they're not, they wouldn't be surprised by that. People are not happy with it, but the school district does not have any librarians. The high school does not have a library. So you just get rid of all the books. It's that simple.
Wow.
That's awful.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I
it
can't
is.
imagine. Well, because Laura and I talk about it, we are both from rural communities, so like it,
Mhm.
librarians are a luxury, as the Western provost said, like we had areas where we couldn't get library cards without paying for them. And so a
Yeah,
lot of
I
times
actually do
our
pay for a library card right now because I'm
yeah.
still living in rural area and I don't have access to as many services. So like hearing you talk about some of the things, and when I hear Hannah talk about certain services that she gets through her library, I'm like, oh, so jealous because we don't have access to
Mhm.
that out here.
And it's interesting to hear that because, like, well, school libraries are so important because that is a space that, like, all students have access
Yeah,
to. So it is a shame to hear that they don't have access to that at all.
absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
I mean, another, oh, I just want to
no, go
say
ahead.
another thing that you could offer, your library. Like I was thinking about this as you were saying this, Laura, like not having access to resources. I was at an Illinois Library Association conference a couple years ago and heard a presentation from this librarian, and it was a community member and this collaboration that they had. So like this woman had this skill, like she was able to quilt, and this other like community member donated I don't know, is it long arm or something like that,
Oh,
like
like one of the
the
giant looms type things.
yes,
Yes.
and so like it does like the quilting or whatever, and so somebody donated this to the library. They're like, okay, we'll take this. but then nobody in the library knew how to use it. But then this, this patron of the library like came in and like was like, "Oh yeah, I know how to use this," and then
Awesome.
they like couldn't get it to work, and then she like read all of these like manuals to figure out how to make it work, and
Oh,
then
wow.
ended up doing this project of like creating quilts with Black members of the community to recreate quilts that had been made like on the Underground Railroad.
Oh my
Oh my
So I
gosh, it's
gosh.
didn't
amazing.
like, yes. So like I guess they used to quilt and those were maps and they would hang the quilts out like on a laundry day,
Oh
but then
yeah.
but then like the quilt would have a design in it that would tell you like where the
Where to
next,
go?
Oh my
where to go. It was
gosh.
like directions. And so like here was this like, so it was just like this whole thing blossomed. So not only like you can go in and teach a class. You have a
Mhm.
skill, go and like offer, like if you have that time, your time can be like so valuable, and like to teach a skill at a library, to teach a class, to help them with the piece of equipment that was donated and they don't know how to use or fix. And then like all of these other programs could like be born out of it. So
Mhm.
that was an incredible presentation. I'd go watch it again.
Oh my gosh. Well, I do know that my sister-in-law, she just taught me how to crochet and she knew the like parameters, but she didn't know how to finish a project. And she looked at the local library and they had a crochet circle and it was full spaces. And she just like had a moment where she was like, no one at a library is ever going to tell you no, even if the spaces are full. So she like walked in and she was like, can one of you teach me how to close this? And someone was like, yeah, come here, we will teach you. And it was just like a beautiful community building moment. So that's amazing. I know we've talked a lot about like the biggest challenges like libraries are facing today. Is there anything else you think we haven't covered with regards to that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I haven't talked about just challenges to DEI work.
Hmm.
So diversity, equity, inclusion. SIUE is an anti-racist institution, and so and they affirmed like that commitment in 2020, and there's just a lot of work on our campus for that. And it's I'm part of a project to increase diversity in the library workforce. And we specifically looked at racial diversity. You could probably go out and invite a bunch of different librarians to be on your podcast, and they'd all look like me, like a white woman. And so, and that's not representative of the US population. And so, I believe that, representation matters, and I believe that libraries should be run by people who represent the communities that they serve. And that is uh, hard work to do
Yeah,
on many levels, and increasingly now, that's a difficult thing. Like, and I've been on like search committees to hire new folks, and there are librarians like working in Texas and they want to get out of there
yeah.
because there's they can't even mention the word diversity. That is a word you cannot say. So
I mean, it's amazing that you guys are doing that. Can you tell us a little bit
Yes.
more about like what that looks like on your campus, having these like accessibility, like diverse areas or like inclusive spaces?
yes, yes. So I mean, one of the things I've seen grow a lot, especially in the past 5 years, is our access department. And so we have a lot of acronyms, so I do not know exactly. Like, I know Access is actually an acronym that stands for something else, but Access is where our students and our employees can go, but mainly our students to get support in their classes. So if they need a text in Braille, they go to Access, and Access makes that available to them in Braille. If they, if they need someone to come in and take notes, like they're going to help provide that accommodation. So they are there to support students and, see them succeed and provide them the accommodations to do that. And so that work is really impressive to me. We have something on campus called the Impact Academy. And again, another acronym I don't remember what they all stand for without Googling it. But the Impact Academy is about, you know, understanding like our identities and like, well, they have like different trainings, but to basically teach you more about diversity and identities, and then also understanding like structures and systems of power and oppression and
Mm,
how to just break all of that down. And like so I've attended, trainings on that, and it's just like kind of incredible because um, this kind of work like helps, I think, everybody to see one another more as leaders. And so like that's the kind of work that I'm seeing on campus. But then also just, yeah, being an inclusive campus, I just took a course they offered to faculty and staff on it was an online course about increasing a sense of belonging for students. So strategies that we can take, whether we're classroom, faculty, whether we work in the library or student support services, and like how can we help students feel seen and feel welcomed. And so that was an awesome course that is still kind of like sitting with me in like ways that I can use the strategies from that class.
amazing.
Absolutely. When you're talking about the acronyms, it really I don't know if you watch Brooklyn Nine-Nine, but it really reminded me of I just had to Google it here. It's the African American Gay and Lesbian New York City Police Association that he like just spits out all the letters of it, and I'm like, that is very much reminding me of what you're talking about. But a program like that is amazing. Are there any other programs that you can think of that are like standouts that have been really successful that you'd maybe like to see other libraries implement or
Well, I mean, I guess you could uh, I could talk about the program that I'm in. Like, I
Yeah,
don't know why I didn't mention this earlier, but our acronym,
advocate for yourself.
yes, I
yes, do
know,
it.
I know our acronym. So, I am part of a group called DLCTE, and so this stands for Diverse Librarianship Career Training and Education Program. And let's see, how many years ago? 5 years ago, we started our application. This is a grant-funded project. So there's the Institute for Museum and Library Services, IMLS. It's a federally funded project that has Laura Bush's name on it because, fun fact, Laura Bush was a librarian. Um,
I
so
knew that actually.
yes, yeah, yeah.
I did not.
Um,
So
she was a librarian. So so this program, the Laura Bush program, they were looking for applications to increase diversity in the workplace. So my colleagues and I got together and we wrote this program, and we wanted to partner, or we wanted to bring together public libraries specifically, and then high schools that had a CTE program, so career and technical education, if you're familiar. So we called it co-op when I was in high school.
Yep.
So like these students, their senior year, they, it can look differently, but many times they'll go to school for half the day, and then they'll work somewhere. And so we were like, why couldn't libraries be a workplace partner? So you go to school and then you go work in the library in the afternoon.
Hmm.
How awesome would
yeah.
that be? And the reason that we wanted to look into that, again, like we were looking to increase racial diversity in the library workforce. And these programs, like you can find, like I think the statistic we saw was like 98% of US high schools have a CTE program, and then a large portion of these programs have Black students enrolled in them. And so we were like, okay. So we worked with area high schools, and we did this for a couple years to have them work in libraries. And so we were wanting to, kind of put this model out there. But of course, like it costs money because they're working, they're getting paid. And so that's what the grant paid for. So I created a web, I guess I do have a web presence. I created, what am I'm not thinking clearly. So this website I created, and I can give you the URL for it, but you can learn more about the work that we did from this, and you can also scale it to be, do something different. And we are now like in the iteration of it where we're not doing that like year-long program where we're like mentoring a student working at a library while they're in high school. But last fall we worked with two different high schools in the area, and we sort of increased our definition of diversity to include like the LGBT community,
Mhm.
to look at disabilities, including neurodiversity, and recruited to have high school students any age, freshman to senior, to come to campus and learn about what library work is. And so we did that last fall. Included like they really liked the students that came really liked having a scavenger hunt. So we had them
Oh,
do a scavenger hunt through the
That's amazing.
library. But yeah, so, and we're doing it again this spring. We're going to work with a different high school to bring a group of high school students in just to teach them about what libraries do. And I think, what we're learning is like this work is important because even if they don't become librarians, which we hope that they would, that maybe they can walk away from it being a library advocate. So,
that's
Well,
amazing.
and just kind of like spark that in them. I,
Yeah.
I think that's fantastic.
Well, and talking about that program, it sounds like it's like shifted and changed a little bit, but like, what do you think is key to making library events or programs like that successful?
no, to be flexible and persistent and organized, which fortunately, I think librarians are very organized people. But yeah, I think it just requires a lot of persistence, like, to stay in communication, to put in that time to build a relationship, to have people to come over. And I'll tell you what, the reason that we were working with like high school students is because that was what was advised, that like by the time like we're recruiting, for diversity, when people already have like they're in graduate programs and getting master's degrees, like it's too late. Like we
Mhm.
have to be recruiting actually as early as middle school, like
Mhm.
because they're learning about like careers and things, and they just don't think of libraries as like, oh, I could work in a library. And my husband always like his sell for talking to younger people is like, hey, which of you helps your grandma with their computer? And they all raise their hands, like, who helps their grandma with their smartphone, like me, or did your grandma get an iPad? Did you help her set it up? And so he's like, you can get paid to do that. He's an e-resources librarian now, electronic resources, but he works in public libraries for 20 years, and he's like, I got paid like every January, I was helping your grandma or somebody's grandma, like to set up their Kindle that they got for Christmas. Like you can get paid for this.
I'm
So
gonna send my dad to the local library to set up his new phone. Like that's an excellent idea. I was trying to help him with an Excel sheet
yeah,
earlier today, and that was a lot.
I
So
just
he's headed
remember
to the library.
the Verizon
yeah.
lady once remembered my dad 3 years after he purchased his last phone because he kept making up things that his phone did. And she was like, I promise, sir, it does not do that.
It's not doing it.
Yeah, but it's a hard sell to get young people in a library. I don't know. If you know the answer, I would like it. I would like that answer. But it is hard to recruit people to, but maybe it just means like we
I
gotta
think
just
to
keep doing
anything
this
at the
work.
moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I
I
I've
mean,
I'm involved in like local fire department, and I know we've seen a lot of struggles getting people to participate in the fire department, even if there's money involved. So it's kind of uh I know there's a lot of talk about like how do we get people to take an interest or care. And I do think a lot of that does come from hitting people early, like
mhm.
trying to get kids involved in programs early. And I don't know the ways to always do that because somebody's got to take them there. Somebody's got to drive the car or walk them there or provide some kind of transportation sometimes. So I don't have all the answers, but I do think you're absolutely right that like starting early is the best way to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we probably could get more middle school students to do this than high school. I mean, like
Hmm.
we paid like the grant paid for the bus to bring them to campus. They got food all day.
Wow.
They got to miss school. all day. And what
Hmm.
was hilarious is at the end of the day, like we're getting feedback from them. They're like, this isn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. Like, yeah.
I love that
They're
they
just
thought it
like,
was going to be bad. Like, come on.
it's probably my dream to just spend a day in a library. So it's like, I would sign up for that,
Yeah,
Yeah.
if you guys ever want to start a program where you like hire white women millennials who want to switch careers, like I'm up for it.
We're both signing up for that list. So
Yeah, I honestly, there's plenty of people on Bookstagram that I think would hop on board.
yeah, that's fair. Well, speaking of your husband's work with e-resources, can you tell us a little bit like with the rise of digital media, how you see like libraries interacting with the digital age and how they're like working together?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't know if I'm just like always going to be doom and gloom with this, but the I guess in some ways it is not so doom and gloom. Like, it feels like we're kind of coming back at all of these vendors. Like, these vendors and their prices for electronic resources are predatory.
Hmm.
Predatory. And so there are big systems, like big university systems that are saying like, no, we're done. So like I think University of California, their system said no to a big vendor, which is the name is Elsevier. I think they have offices in St. Louis, which is not far from me. But it's just incredible. Like the price is just it, 5% every year. And then the libraries are
Yeah.
getting these like flat budgets. Like our budgets can't keep up with paying for this, which like the whole point of all of these, resources, being online is like it makes them convenient, but there's a cost to it. And, the libraries are about access, right? Like we value access. So we're wanting to get you access. And so we're trying to sort of navigate like how do we again meet the needs, like the information needs of our patrons with the budget that, the constraints that we have. Um, and we're sort of leaning into interlibrary loan.
Hmm.
So kind of, but eventually, like I'm sort of like, wait, like what is going to happen? Because if these big systems are like saying no and they're turning away from it, like because right now we can lean on interlibrary loan because somebody's still paying for it. Some
Yeah.
libraries still
Hmm.
paying for access to these e-resources. So it's been kind of it's been exciting to have grown up with it because I was born before the internet. Um,
Yeah.
so, um, and and I mean, I can remember, when things were starting to be online, and it's interesting. Like people still think everything is online, and it is
Hmm.
not.
Hmm.
It is not. Not everything has been digitized, and I don't know that not everything ever will be
Right.
digitized.
Right.
Like it's you're gonna actually have to interact with something tangible at some point probably in your life. But so it's been exciting to be able to get things quickly, but then also it presents this we have these young people that have not interacted with things like um an encyclopedia like in
Hmm.
Yeah.
print and like they're they're just wired differently. Like they look at information differently because of it, like and just how it's organized. Like I'm teaching like college students how to use like a table of contents and an index, like,
Yeah.
in a book. I worked with we have amazing faculty in the English department. We have a whole group of faculty specialized in African American literature. They're amazing. Can't say enough good things. If you want to study African American lit, this is the place to be. Um, and one of the professors came to me several years ago to talk about how she wanted to have students create a digital anthology, and she learned that they don't know what the hell an anthology is. And
Oh.
so,
Yeah. Like,
right, because she's like, they just have not interacted with this and they don't understand the form, like how something is packaged. And so that is so hard to convey in a digital format.
Hmm.
Um, so there's, I don't know. I'm like kind of excited to just see where things go and just like see how people understand the world around them when they haven't been, I don't know, there's just like things that are lost like in translation when they become electronic.
Yeah.
I will say though, like for me, I have a library card to a public library out in California that offers like a ton of online resources, and I don't know how they're paying for it, but I really appreciate that they offer this to like people all across the country that I have access to like comic books and stuff like that that I wouldn't be able to read otherwise. But in terms of like the cost of things, are you typically paying full price or more for audiobooks or ebooks?
Um, it depends. So, the we don't actually, I don't know that we have an audiobook collection, not like a digital one that you would have experienced on something like Libby
Yeah.
or
Hoopla or
over
something.
Hoopla, Overdrive. All of those apps, those are very public library focused. They just don't have like they don't have licenses for academic libraries.
Mm.
Like there's just not, that's just not the market. And probably what's happening and your access to it is coming from like a consortium. So some kind of library system has come together, and then somebody at the system has negotiated that contract. It's been
That's
sort of,
definitely
I
the
mean,
situation
yeah,
because it's like I know for me specifically, it's like Northern Illinois Library System is what it is. And I, like I've always had this like my mom uses Libby a lot and she can never understand it. It took me a while to figure it out too because you have these wait times for these books and it's something that's like hard to wrap your brain around when like you can go on Amazon and just click buy and it's there. And when you go to Libby, they're like 4 month wait. And it's like, wait a minute, it's just an ebook. Send that over. So it's definitely a situation where there's only so many available and they have to be paid for too.
Mhm.
And I guess I was just a little surprised when you were talking about like all the price gouging. I was like, that's kind of unfortunate that they're gouging libraries. Ugh.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, they're taking information and like sort of packaging it up and just reselling it. So, but there
Yeah.
are, there are like all kinds of just forces like fighting against that. There's like, proponents for like open access, like,
Yep.
especially like, if you have professors that are doing research with public
Yeah.
money, right? Like getting
Mm-hmm.
federal grants, but then they publish in a journal that you have to pay for to read about.
Yep.
But the
Yep.
public paid for that
Yep.
research,
Yeah.
and so there are libraries working to have things called institutional repositories so that you can just go out, Google it, and you can read their article. And so trying to navigate that is difficult for scholars, but we're sort of working through that. And then like as far as like the ebooks, like I was just thinking about I try to buy ebooks as much as I can because right, like
Mm-hmm.
more people can look at them, and the license will oftentimes be, they call it unlimited user
Hmm.
is what we will have here, which makes sense. But then they will have like some books like I've purchased some graphic novels. I love graphic novels, and so I've tried to collect some of those over the years. And I tried to get a copy of Fun Home, if you're familiar with
Oh yeah.
that.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Good one.
and that was a one user license. So our ebook version, we have a print copy of it too, but our ebook version is a one user at a time. And
Oh,
it
wow.
knows like so it's like you can't get to it. And it's like, oh, that's so frustrating. So I try to avoid that at all costs because the whole point here is to again have access, but the way that it's working with public libraries is that's how these companies are sort of making their money, I guess,
Hmm.
like from libraries. And I wanted to say too, like if you're in a rural community, I mean, sometimes many libraries, I think like St. Louis Public Library, for example, you can actually, well, not buy a library card. You can become a friend of the library is
Yes.
what they call it. So you can, so you probably are aware, but you can become a friend of the library. I think it's like $60 a year, and you can just do it all online, and St. Louis Public Library will send you your information, and then you can use their ebook access and,
That's
in
awesome.
Libby. Yeah.
Well, and it's
So
so interesting to hear about like the price gouging and things like that because there are things that I think people don't think about when they think about their libraries because they're like, oh, I have access, so I can just. I remember specifically, I was on TikTok one day and a librarian came on and she was like, hey, just so you know, like every time you check out a book, like sometimes on Libby, that means like that's one of our books. You used it once, so we may have to pay for it down the line. And then I was like, oh, I have to think about when I check a book out. I have to read it because I don't want to waste their time and their person. Like there's so many hidden costs that get encapsulated in that.
yeah, I mean, it depends on how they have it set up. Like we have, I don't know if you've ever used a resource called Canopy. It's a
Hmm.
streaming video. So we have a subscription to it, but the way that we have it set it up is that it's mediated. So you can only see like a trailer, and then you have to request us to purchase it. Because if you set it up otherwise, like the only other option is like if somebody plays 15 seconds like or something of a video, then we just purchase it, which it's not cheap to buy like films as an academic library. It's like, hundreds of dollars like per film, and that goes very fast. So we have that mediated. And so libraries they can probably have like some mediation with their ebooks too. So maybe they just haven't found that. But I will say, like, you know, I would much rather see like circulation stats go up. So yeah.
That's true.
I thought you were going to say like the number of streams, like if somebody watches like the Lord of the Rings trilogy like 40 times or something like that, it's like we have to pay for that every single time. It's like, oh no.
No, 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 no. Once we purchase, a license to it, you're good to watch it as many times as you want. So,
Uh,
and the more stats, the better.
Well, that's
uh,
comforting.
we've talked a lot about like building up and like having this like digital access and things like that. But on the opposite end, how, especially in an academic way, like how do libraries go about the process of weeding their books and collections?
Man, you're asking me all the tough things. So I mean, there's a reason we use the word weeding, right? Like it's
Hmm.
reference to gardening, right? Or that's the metaphor there. And so a well curated collection, it should just be like a garden. Like you need to, free up some space. So I mean, there's a cost involved in keeping all of your books on the shelf. And so it's difficult work because people don't want to see you get rid of books. And I work at a library that was like not weeding ever. And so then we decided to play catch up a couple years ago, and we could have communicated better, I'll just say. So I
Hmm.
think, like, if you make it a regular practice, I think that that's better. There are going to be some institutions like the University of Illinois, for example, that's like a huge collection, and they're not weeding anything. They're collecting
Hmm.
everything until the end of time. I think when I was in school there, they were always saying, oh, Harvard and Yale have a larger collection. We're the third largest academic library in the United States.
Brag.
But I wonder what University of Michigan would say. Like, oh,
I don't
our
want to
coll-
know.
I don't you don't want to know. Our collection's better. No, but we don't have the space, and then like, there are just you have to make space for new material that's coming in. So that means like some material is going to have to go by the wayside. And so there are all kinds of, um, acronyms out there. I think MUSTY is one. Got MUSTY. Again, I wouldn't. Okay, the U is for use. I don't know what the M
Okay.
is. MUSTIE is like one of, yeah, the acronyms to think about for criteria for weeding. And but yeah,
I
use.
pulled it up because
Oh,
I was
okay.
just interested because using musty as a acronym is so interesting. It means misleading or factually inaccurate, ugly, worn, and beyond mending or
No.
rebinding, superseded by a newer edition or a better book, trivial, of no literary or scientific value. Imagine being the T in that. That sounds so bad.
That's really
Um,
hard to navigate that one.
yeah, irrelevant to the needs and interests of the community or obtained elsewhere, such as through interlibrary loan or electronic format.
There you go.
I still think the
Yeah.
T is probably the meanest one out of Musty.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we had
I'm quick to judge a book by its cover, so maybe I would be good
yeah.
at like that book's ugly. Get that one out of here.
I don't think they mean the cover, Laura. I think they
I'm
mean
just
like
saying,
the
I do think that that has a lot to do with it. Like I'm thinking like marketing wise, like let's get the newer edition in here.
Listen, before we did all this weeding, I was going through and finding ugly books. I'm not gonna lie.
Hmm.
And ugly meaning like they were like crumbling, like they were,
Mhm.
like you'd pick it up and it was just like I would take students to the stacks to help them find the book because like we use Library of Congress classification. So reading the call numbers is a little different. But also like they might not know how to read a Dewey Decimal call number either. Anyway, but I would show them, oh, we have the book on the shelf and like we have like a copy from like 1988 and like the binding is like sort of falling apart and the pages are crumbly and they're like, can you order a newer copy for me? And I'd be like, okay, like I need to like weed this one and like replace it with a newer one. Like they don't want to put it in their backpack.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So like literally. And then there were just like other issues like that is possibly like mold or red rot and like I don't want to like actually investigate to find out. We're
Yeah.
just gonna assume and
Because it could
dump.
damage the library further. So
Well, I know
Right.
I've even checked
yeah.
out
Right.
books where they've been like kind of misprinted, where the page was like printed on twice, and so it's like the text looks blurred almost because it was overlapped that they printed it like that, and it's like that for an entire chapter. I'm like, well, I can't even read this chapter
Mm-mm.
because it just is so blurry and from a misprint. So I feel like those type of things would be quick to weed out. And I know
Yeah.
like local libraries in this area will do like book sales that people really look forward to yearly. So I I do understand when people are like upset that libraries are getting rid of books, but at the same time it can be a moment of joy.
Yeah.
But I do have a question in terms of like donations to libraries because one of the libraries in our area, because I utilize Illinois has this Rails system where if you have a library card at one library, you can go to all these other ones, which is fantastic. But I go to another local library and they have a big sign up that says, "We will only accept these specific donations." And apparently they've gotten a lot of people wanting to donate like newspapers and National Geographics and all sorts of magazines and like tons of romance books. So they will not accept any of those things. Is that a common issue that donations are pretty freely offered?
Oh yeah. Yeah, we get calls about donations all the time and it's never like, oh, like here's a donation of this like really amazing collection of books to add to our archives. It's like, someone passed away and they found all this stuff in their attic, and it smells weird. So,
Yeah.
and so like I think maybe like people like their heart is in the right place, right? Because they don't want to like throw away books, right?
Hmm.
It's
Hmm.
sometimes you just got to throw away books. One of my grad school colleagues went and worked in Uganda. So I graduated in 2008, December 2008. Finding jobs was hard.
Oh
So
yeah.
and yeah, so one of my colleagues, she found a job in Uganda. So she
Wow.
yeah, it was this Christian organization. So she went and lived in Uganda. They needed help setting up and organizing their library. So she went in and she cataloged everything and set it up with a system, for them to search for it, items. And she talked a lot about how people would donate books, to this organization. They were just junk. It was like,
Mm.
I this is not serving this community at
Hmm.
all. Like, don't send your books that are falling apart. Like,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
you've actually like made, more. like
More
work
work.
for me for
Right.
yeah, because I have to weed through this donation and
Mhm.
I'm throwing out your stuff.
Yeah, just
So
throw it out yourself. Don't make me a middleman here.
Yeah.
On like the
yeah.
flip side of that, are there any like books that you've noticed are like really popular, maybe even that you wish people would take more of a notice in? Like I know you mentioned you love graphic novels. Are are there specific books that you're like, I wish people were checking out this?
I mean, yeah. Yeah, I would love like if our like graphic novel and I really got into graphic and really they're graphic memoirs. Those are the ones that I really got into like Persepolis. I don't know if you've read that
Hmm.
I
or
haven't,
Mouse.
but I
Oh,
really like
Persepolis
Good
is
Talk.
Oh yeah.
I don't know Good Talk. I might
Oh, you
have
should read it.
purchased that, but I haven't read it. But I just, yeah, I think I also watched like this TED Talk on like visual rhetoric and like got even like further into like, oh, we must have every graphic memoir available in graphic novel. But so I think, yeah, those would be, I would like to see that checked out. I honestly like we have like a browsing, we call it browsing books. So in academic libraries, we don't purchase a lot of like popular fiction or popular nonfiction, um, because we're purchasing materials to support the curriculum. And sometimes we're buying some popular stuff there. Like we have well, I haven't checked the shelf to see if they walked, but at one point in time I had purchased the illustrated versions of Harry Potter. And
Oh,
so so like that's in the collection. Maybe you wouldn't think that would be in an academic library, but there is a lot of just it's like there's literature, but like we have like biographies about the authors, right? And then we have anthologies of their works, and then we have all this literary criticism. So yeah. But yeah,
That's
I
awesome.
would love to see the graphic novels, graphic memoirs checked out.
That's amazing. We're big fans of graphic novels over here. So,
absolutely.
uh, yeah, I know you talked a little bit about how people can be engaged with their libraries, run for the board or just look into things. But how else like can people get engaged with their libraries and support them, even if they, it's not just checking out books?
Yeah, well, libraries can always use your money. So you can be, a library friend, check to see if there's way to join that. Just be a patron, like, be in there, use the space, you know, use things like Libby. Like these are resources, and you are often, if you are paying taxes, you are paying for that library and that library card. So go get it, get it set up.
But
Um,
not you billionaires because you're not paying taxes.
yeah, true,
They could pay their taxes. That's
true,
how they could support their local libraries. So
true. That, or I don't know, just give us all like help us, pay for Elsevier. My goodness,
create an
build
endowment.
us,
Like,
yeah, help us pay for new carpet because ours looks gross.
oh, yeah.
So,
Yeah.
if our listeners or if readers are interested in visiting their local library after hearing this podcast, is there like a specific thing that you would recommend they explore first? Or maybe you have like a service or something that is offered by the library that people don't realize is there?
Hmm. I mean, I usually would check out the website first. I would assume that the library would have a web presence, so I would just be kind of curious to look, or a social media presence. If you are not following Milwaukee Public
Oh,
Library on social
Oh, I love
media,
them.
they're my local
they,
library.
oh my God,
And I
oh my God.
love them.
So yeah, and the social media person there so one of my colleagues here at SIUE used to work at Milwaukee Public, and I guess remembers working with their social media person. Says like, oh yeah, they're all amazing. But yeah, so I mean, I think checking out their web presence if you're maybe a little nervous, and I would say like bring a friend. Then you get two people in the library.
Big
or
deal.
Beautiful.
three. Another thing to think about too is I bet a lot of libraries will have Wi-Fi
Mhm.
and that you don't pay for, and then probably like a meeting space. So if you're a work from home person, if you're a remote worker, and you want to get out of your house and just be in a different space, you don't have to buy anything in the library, and
Mhm.
you don't have to smell like coffee.
That's so true. No,
So yeah.
that's amazing. Um, can you, I know we've talked a lot, you've had a lot of experiences. Can you just share a fun, heartwarming, or surprising interaction you've seen in a library, any of the ones you've worked in?
Heart like with me or just like been witness to?
A
Either
la the line
or.
of Michael Treats, who
Oh,
has all these heartwarming library friend experiences. We actually got to meet Michael Thwaites at an author get together signing and all these things in Milwaukee, and that was amazing. But do you have any heartwarming moments along those lines?
um, I mean, yeah, I've worked with students, and I the one that comes to mind right now is there was a student that kept making appointments with me to get help with their research project, and came in one time, and like we're sitting next to each other, and she has her computer and I have my computer, we're working, and she's like, okay, she's doing her work, and then she looks over at me, she's like, uh I guess I don't need you here. And I was like, no, you don't need me anymore.
Oh,
Oh,
oh no.
which is like she really like, it was just like I carried her to where she needed to be,
Yes. Now she's
because
able to
like
fly.
that's beautiful.
I don't even remember like what the class was that she was in. Maybe it was like foreign language. I don't know. But like part of this is like, yeah, like, wanting to teach people how to be, independent researchers, but understanding that even like the best researcher, there's value in interdependence, right? Like,
Mhm.
knowing that you could come back to somebody and get some help if you need it at some point. But like, she didn't need me anymore. Like, she knew what she was doing. She knew how to find her resources. She knew how to cite them. She knew how to use them. Like, she could be teaching someone else how to use the library. So that was kind of, I don't know. I thought like I always think about that. Or I remember a time like a student came by when I was sitting at the reference desk and saying like, "Hey, we got an A on my paper," and I was
Oh,
like, "You did, not
that's
me.
love.
You
That
know what?
No,
was
I love
you."
that though because those interactions are so meaningful to people. Like at my local library, I had a librarian who was apparently just paying attention to what I was checking out. And when I came in once, she was like, "Have you checked out this manga series? You would probably like it." And it made me feel so good that she was just paying attention. So I think that's just amazing that the work you do is so community focused and so personal that you can have those interactions with people and really just make a difference in their day to day to help them feel more supported.
well,
Yeah.
libraries are so important because they are, a lot of people talk about the death of the third space, home, work, and then a third space. And it's like libraries are one of the last free spaces. So we need to help them out as much as we can so that they can get prettier carpet in and you can enjoy your third
Yes.
space. So. This has been amazing. Thank you so much for talking
Yes,
with
thank
us.
you, Laura.
Is there anything that we haven't asked you about that you're like itching to talk about, or you feel like no one ever asks you about, and you're like, oh, as a librarian, I want to talk about that?
Hmm. I don't know.
That's okay. If we've covered everything and it's a perfect interview, we love to hear that too. So,
Yeah, I mean, I guess like the thing I will say I feel like I didn't talk a little bit about earlier is just that there's administrators in libraries too. And
Mm,
so and maybe it's unfair to even like call them administrators. They're leaders in libraries that do administrative work. I'll say it like that. Like that's I mean, I have in our library, we have a dean, and she's very much a leader, and a leader who has to do a lot of administrative work. And so that's, so when I'm saying like the catalogers are doing that magic, there's actually some more magic happening with the administrators too. So it takes a lot to run like a really well-oiled machine library. So getting people to work together and organize information and then connect people to information and to one another. So um, I don't know. I am glad I work here. I also just want to say I got to meet Sandra Day O'Connor, and I thought that was really cool.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Oh,
That's so cool. You
that
should
is
have
very
led with
cool.
that.
No, she shouldn't have. No, what you said was very important, but we're very impressed.
No, I mean,
So-
like as soon as we started this Zoom call, just throwing
And
this out there, I met Sandra Day O'Connor.
yeah, yeah.
That's very
So
cool.
your reactions were great. So I know I'm in good company because sometimes I say that and they're like, "Who's that?" And I'm like, "Are you there?"
Are you serious? Like, no, please remember who this is.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
so yeah, I was at the U.S. Court of Appeals. So
Oh yeah.
and she had retired at that point from the Supreme Court. But they can retire, they can come and like they can just do what they want. They're
Oh
like,
yeah.
oh, you need me to sit on in a case in the Eighth Circuit? I'll be by. So I mean, I don't know like how active like she was then, but like the Eagleton Courthouse in downtown St. Louis, like the library's on the 22nd floor, and like at the top they have the Harry Blackmun Rotunda. And if you don't know Harry Blackmun is the conservative justice who wrote the Roe v. Wade
Hmm.
opinion. And so there was like at the time, I assume it's probably still there, but the whole rotunda was like had a whole display on him. And she was there. They were having a reception, and it was like you could go up from the library and meet Sandra. I was like, yeah. I was like,
Yeah.
I don't even know what I said to her. I was just like probably just like frozen because I get stressed out around like celebrities. And
First woman to be on the Supreme Court, of course. Yes.
Yeah.
like and I couldn't like I'm short. You can't tell, I guess maybe here, but I'm 5 foot tall, and like she's like tall. I was like, whoa, I don't know why. I guess I was just like, oh, you're older, and so you're probably short like me. Like no, um, but I remember thinking like she's quite tall. But I got a picture. I got to take a picture with her.
Oh, that's
So
amazing.
That's
yeah,
amazing.
yeah, shake her hand and like oh my gosh,
Everyone should
yeah,
become librarians. You could meet
yes,
amazing Supreme Court
All sorts of
justices.
opportunities.
yes, yes.
Oh, that's amazing. Well,
Well, Laura, to wrap it up, what have you been reading, watching, and or enjoying recently?
Okay, so I don't know if this is boring, but my husband and I just watched all the Harry Potter movies all over
It's not
again.
boring.
that's not boring. That's great.
And it's been a while, and I just really enjoyed it. And I was really kind of sad when they were over. Like it was like I'm like currently grieving like watching that. And then I picked up, I haven't read all the books since like it's been like 16 years, and so I have them on my Kindle, and so I picked that up and started reading them again, and that's been kind of fun to try and like see like oh my, like Sirius Black is mentioned in the first chapter, and I was like
Hmm.
what. So I'm excited to be going through that again. Other than that, I also watched a documentary on John Williams, who's the composer for like every movie you
Oh
Star
probably ever.
Wars,
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Jaws.
Home Alone.
Yep.
And
Um,
he like never got actual Oscar nominations for the ones you think he would get. Like they're
mhm.
always random. Like, yeah.
My goodness, there is like a 2 hour documentary on Disney Plus. I cannot recommend that enough. I am a big Peloton person, and you can like I just like watch that on the Peloton because I was like this, and I kind of want to go watch it again. It was so good. It's so
Fantastic.
good. So good. Just like this, he really interesting like upbringing, like his background, and just what a like just incredible person, and like the work that he's done. Lots of Steven Spielberg interviews throughout that documentary too. So, yeah,
Yeah,
but
because
check it out.
E.T.
Interesting.
Wow.
Yeah.
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 Well, everyone
Yeah.
go check that out. And, if you're interested, we could plug that if you ever want to meet Laura, you could join SIUE and become a patron of the library.
Yes.
Uh,
Yes.
can are there any other places you'd like to plug? I know you said you'll share the website that talks about
Yes. I
And I'll
can
put that in the
email
show
it, but
notes.
yeah, I can put it in the chat here too. But if you go to
Perfect.
iris.siue.edu/DLCTE, you can learn more about the work that we are doing to increase diversity in the library workforce. But yes, please come and get your bachelor's degree, your master's degree. We have a doctoral program in
uh,
nursing, one of
oh,
the few in the United States. Yeah, come to SIUE. Great school, affordable, a wonderful library.
a
Um,
wonderful library.
yes, yeah, Lovejoy Library. That's where I work. Named after Elijah Lovejoy,
Oh,
abolitionist. Yes.
that well, this has been so wonderful. We love
Yes. Thanks so
libraries.
much.
Thank you so much. We
Yeah.
really appreciate your time.
No, yes, this was really fun. Thank you so much for having me and all your questions. This is like, yeah, I had a blast.
Well, you'll have to come back on sometime and do a
Yes.
TV
Okay.
Tuesday with us or something. So,
Yeah, yeah,
uh,
for sure.
all right. Well, listeners, you can find us on all social media platforms where we are located at OWWR Pod. And please make sure you're rating, reviewing, and subscribing, and that you're joining us next week as we dive back into Breaking the Earth as we cover the first third of
N.K. Jemison's Breaking
the,
the Broken Earth trilogy. We're in the
yes,
Obelisk Gate now.
the Obelisk Gate. So the first third of the Obelisk Gate. And I should have checked that before we started recording, so I apologize. But thank you,
Well, thanks for listening
Laura.
today.
Thank you,
Yeah.
everyone, for listening. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.